Hello everyone and welcome to GT Academy Round 4. It's the final round, it's the one that counts and it's the one that will get you to either your national final or race camp. Now it's a unique combination, this one. The driving style is very unique, and that's because we're in the new Nissan LMP1 car, so the Nissan GTR LM Nismo, and we're at Le Sarthe. And of course we're at Le Sarthe because at the end of this combination, during the end of it, Le Mans 24 Hours is happening, and Nissan have 3 of these cars there racing with 3 GT Academy winners racing them in Jan, Lucas and Mark. So all the best to them, and I'm actually going to see them as well, so that'll be interesting. But back to the guide. So because it's front wheel drive, this car, a couple of tips straight off the bat that you need to think about on your entire lap is the fact that obviously in all my other guides I've talked about trail braking, because generally it's either been 4-wheel drive or rear wheel drive. You can't trail brake that much, if at all, in this car, because you will understeer. Think of it as, you know, the wheels can only do one thing, so if they're not doing anything, braking or accelerating, you can get the full turn and then you can accelerate out. So on the opposite side of that, when accelerating out of a corner, obviously we're used to trying to get a bit of rotation to get round. You're going to have to look at half throttle. Half throttle and turning seems to be fine in this car, but if you go over half throttle, you then start to find you get understeer and things like that. So you gotta, it swings and roundabouts as we go around the lap. Sometimes you want to do certain things and sometimes you want to do other things, but I'll talk about that as we go around the lap. I'll point out brake markers, things like that I look out for. Most of the corners do have some sort of reference, so you can get quite consistent quite quickly. And you can be over aggressive on this combination and lose a lot of time, so it's a bit interesting really, because you want to be aggressive, you want to keep momentum, but then you don't want to be over aggressive. But I'll talk about that as I go around. Like usual, it'll be a slow-mo lap, and then we will also do a fast lap with commentary. I say it's a slow-mo lap. There are bits where I've accelerated it to normal pace just because along straight there's nothing to talk about on that, you know, we're just going corner to corner. So things between like the chicanes on the Mulsanne straight, we'll just speed through those really quickly. So without further ado, let's kick off this round 4 guide, and we'll do that by going around Dunlop Curve and heading towards the chicane. Just to note, as you start the lap, you're looking for 130 as like a peak miles per hour that I always aim for, and that's how you know you've got a really good start. Also to note as well, I'm racing Wolf from Japan's Ghost. He's absolutely flying in this round, so that's the Ghost I'm sort of racing. So as you come up to the first corner, you're going to stay in 4th gear. You're going to want to maintain around 180 miles an hour, and as you turn in you can actually start to come off the throttle a little bit, just to make sure you go to the far right hand side. Now it doesn't matter if you are racing the Ghost if he goes ahead of you, because he actually runs his corner a bit too deep on this lap. So you can actually beat this Ghost in this first sector. Now you'll notice this white line to the right on the curbing. That's sort of what I use as a brake marker. So I try and stay to the right and I try and brake just before it. And then I want to try and release the brake in quite early. As I said just at the start of this, if you try and trail brake in or brake too hard straight away, you won't be able to get the turn in, and therefore you won't be able to keep momentum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to brake. I'm going to go down to 2nd gear initially, and then to 1st gear. And I'm going to stay quite tight for the first part of the chicane, because on the second part, again, as it's front wheel drive, I want the least amount of steering angle so I can accelerate out really cleanly and not have wheel spin and understeer and everything like that. Basically, throughout this lap you'll find that the cones are quite annoying, and that if you run wide at all, your lap will be disallowed essentially. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to brake hard, 3rd gear, 2nd gear, and as I said, down to 1st gear, and we're going to start to release, and we're going to want to come in and stay really tight. So notice I'm not doing anything now. Normally I say always do something, but in this case don't. Now I'll put on the throttle a little bit here because I want to be slightly aggressive. I turn in here, I try and aim for the cones, and I will hopefully just miss them because I'm really tight on the first bit. I sort of reduce the steering angle needed, so the angle of the corner essentially. So going from like a sharp 90, I've reduced it to 80 or 70 degrees. So I can accelerate round. So at the moment Wolf looks like he's really far ahead, but I can actually catch him up. I can actually pass him on really good laps. You know, it's the line you take through that corner. It's all about momentum, as I said. Slow in, fast out. This is what this whole lap is all about. So again, I'm turning in. Notice I've put on the throttle early, and remember I said before about half throttle. There I was 3/4 throttle, straight to second gear, and then I accelerate out. The car's a lot of power, low down the rev range, so if you want to use second gear early on, you can do that. And then straight to third. Again, I short shifted there, as I said before, about the battery in the bottom left with the ERS system, energy recovery system. So as we come down this corner now, we just want to stay tight. Don't stay too tight. These little red things here on the right hand side, they actually will disallow your lap. Anything that you hit will disallow your lap. But as we come into the S's, what we're going to do here is this is a judgment corner, so there are a couple of these. This is one of them, but this judgment corner is quite easy to judge, if that makes sense. You're just going to brake down to third gear. If you want to stay in third gear, you can. I go down to second gear just as a bit of a pattern, and then as I start to accelerate, I go up to third gear. But essentially, you're just going to start braking as soon as you straightened up. So this is exactly what I'm going to do. So as you can see, I come round. I'm instantly going to start braking. I straightened up there, straight to second gear, release it, so it's rolling slowly. I don't want to drop down below 100 miles an hour at all here. Straight to third gear because I've started accelerating. And again, if you touch anything on the right side, you'll disallow your lap. So just be careful here. Don't try and risk that. Don't even try and touch the curb. Just stay slightly left of the curb and accelerate out. You can use all the curb on the left hand side. Can actually run a little bit wide and still keep the car on track or as a valid lap, and you won't lose too much time either. And this is your end of your first sector basically. So as I come round, I'm going to complete sector 1, and I think it's about a tenth I'm down. As I said before, I've beaten Wolf to this one. There is time in his lap still, but one thing I will mention with this entire lap, don't focus on one sector too much. So I've always, on this combination specifically, if I can be within a tenth each time on each sector, you know, I don't know how, I think there's like 6 sectors, that's 6 tenths, so if I stay within that, that puts me in a really high ranking. So if you try and build yourself a little rule where you say, right, okay, I'll be within 2 tenths on every sector, it actually isn't as bad as you think when you get to the end of the lap and you're 2 seconds behind or whatever it is. So that's just a little idea you can do. So as we come up to Tertre Rouge, apologies for my pronunciation, this one is also a judgment corner. This is the last of the judgment corners. The rest all have brake markers, so it's actually quite nice that these are at the start of the lap and not the end of the lap, because otherwise it would really kill your lap time right at the end. So for this one, I'm not sure you'll be able to see it where I've paused it, but on the right hand side there's some tyre marks that go into sort of the tarmac section, and at the end of those is where I brake and I drop to third gear. Now Wolf stays in fourth. Now as I said before, there's a lot of power in the lower end of the rev range, so you can do that. I tend to stay in third because, I don't know, I feel like I get more turning. I don't know what it is, but again, it's about judgment. Don't aim for the cones, stay to the left of the cones. These are the cones you're going to hit the most, apart from the Porsche Chicane ones, which is the last corner of the lap. So as I come into here, notice the time marks there. I brake at the end of those, turn in, I stay off the throttle, make sure I've made it. I know I've made it at this point because obviously I'm to the right of the ghost. I can accelerate out. I'm in third gear, straight to fourth gear. You can short shift if you want, as Wolf obviously stays there, and then we accelerate out. Sort of a speed reference point. Now how good you are doing. These cones, you want to be at 186 miles an hour. And we're going to accelerate to the PlayStation Chicane, aptly named there for Gran Turismo's GT Academy. So we're going to speed up here, and as we start to head towards this chicane, on the left hand side, I'm just going to pause it here. You've got the 200 meter board and the 100 meters really far ahead, but in between that is the start of a new barrier, and I think it's a blue marker or it's people, I'm not sure what it is, but you're going to brake just before that. Now you can make the corner and brake on that, but that's going for an absolutely perfect lap, and it's very difficult to get right if you brake there. I've always found if you be a little less aggressive, just brake just before it, do the same as you normally do, you'll actually make it better. Basically for these next 2 chicanes, it's all about momentum and getting around as smooth as you can and as fast as you can, maintaining the most speed, but then getting a fast exit. So when I say maintain the most speed, basically it means that you can reduce any error on exit of losing any speed because you're still turning essentially. So if you were leaving the corner at 72, you're then sort of like 4 or 5 miles an hour faster than 67, and that 67 has to catch up to 72, whereas if you just stayed at 72 and just started accelerating, lost a little bit of speed, you're still ahead essentially. So that's the thinking process you have to do for these two chicanes, and it's sort of what you have to do for the rest of the lap. So I'm going to brake at this brake marker, I'm going to drop to second gear and stay in second gear initially until I've made the first part of the chicane. So you see that now, notice on the left hand side there, the brake marker is the people essentially. So I'm going to drop to second gear, and before I start turning in properly, I'm going to come off. There we go. And notice how I make the apex there, perfect, accelerate a little bit, and then I'm going to drop to first. Well, I can drop to first, I stay in second now. I did used to drop to first, you can drop to first, you won't lose any time. Notice I'm doing half to 3/4 throttle again, make sure I've made the corner, I know I've made it, don't go too far over that white line there, otherwise you'll get disqualified. And accelerate out. And again, notice the ERS system on the left hand side, now I'm using the battery, I'll short shift to third just to make sure I get full use. 4/10 down on Wolf, so I lost 2/10 there, and I'm going to accelerate onto the Michelin Chicane. So, as I said before, you can drop to first there. I did used to do that a lot. I stay in second now because I'm just trying to practice different ways. As I said previously in my other videos, always test new things, and I was testing a new thing here. So as we come to the Michelin Chicane, our brake marker this time is the 100 meter board. And basically, because obviously before we broke before that, here we're not doing as much speed. So that's why it's a tiny bit later, but we're just going to brake just before it, like we did with the other one. You can brake on the 100 meter and make it successfully, and in fact you can actually gain quite a lot. But you'll also find that you will make more errors on every single lap, and there's more time elsewhere in the lap, specifically at the end of the lap. So you might as well do this properly and consistent, rather than too aggressive and mess it up most of the time, and then occasionally get a good one. So you're going to brake just before the 100 meter board. Same again, you're going to drop to second gear, and you're going to want to make sure you hit the apex on the left, and it's the same as before. Try and maintain as much momentum as you can through this whole chicane in order to keep more speed on the exit and accelerate away from the corner really quickly. Now be warned, during the Michelin Chicane there's actually a little bump on the on the turn-in, which can actually help your lap, and it also can hinder your lap, because basically it'll either force you to hit the cones, or you'll miss the cones and it'll be perfect and you'll nail it. Now I nail it in this lap obviously. So again, just brake before the 100 meter board. So as you see there, brake just before it, drop to third gear, drop to second gear. Before I start turning in properly, I'm going to start releasing. There we go. Notice I get a bit more turn in as soon as I'm off the brakes. Accelerate a little bit, and then I'm going to brake a little bit here during the corner. Notice that bump there, and I do miss the apex a little bit there, but it's not too bad. And again, 3/4 throttle there. As I've always said, on each of these corners, half to 3/4 throttle is going to help you tons through this lap, absolutely tons. Again, I'm going to accelerate out now, and I'm still 4/10 behind, well 5/10 basically. I've not lost a lot there, so I'm sort of in my range that I've picked as a rule. Be careful of those cones on the right hand side, don't get yourself disqualified there. And we're now going to head to the Mulsanne corner. This corner is very interesting. The brake marker is actually a tree on the right hand side. So hopefully I can pause it and you can see the difference. So here we go. On the right hand side you've got this dark coloured, well, you've got a light coloured tree, the first one on the right, and a dark one, then a load of light trees, and you've got this really dark green one on the right hand side. That's your brake marker. It's in the perfect place. You can brake just after that if you're feeling aggressive and lucky on it, if you want to be safe. You don't want to brake before it really, because you're basically braking too soon. So here we're going to drop to first gear. It's a very slow corner, it's this corner, and you want to stay as far to the left as possible. Now do be aware if you go over the white line too much. Same for the chicanes actually, if you go over the white line too much you will get disqualified, but the more you're over it and valid, again like the first corner, you're reducing the angle of turning and the overall angle of the corner so you can maintain more speed. Same principle here. So as we come in, we're going to use the tree as a marker, just brake just after it there, down to fourth gear, third gear, second gear, first gear, straight away, and I'm moving towards the left. Notice how much more of the corner of the track Wolf uses, and again I'm going to come off the brake to get full turn in, half throttle, keep mentioning this, 3/4 throttle nearly, straight to second gear, short shift, and then straight away I'm going to accelerate out again. Before I hit the full limit of the gear, I'm also then going to short shift, there we go. I didn't short shift as much there as I should have, but I've also lost a 10th again, so I'm still in the range. And now we're going to head up to Indianapolis. This bit again, just make sure you're hitting the corners appropriately here, and it's nice and easy as we go around. So as we come up to Indianapolis, well, to the corner before it, notice we've got this 100-meter board. Now this is a very fast corner, so I brake to around 180. Well, so the apex is 180 miles an hour, and I turn in, and I'm not doing anything as I turn in. Again, as I said before, don't do 100% of anything if you don't want to understeer. So I turn in, and then after the corner, you want to be as straight as possible as you brake. Now you'll notice on mine, the rear is sliding a little bit, but I still make the corner. If you're braking and you're sideways, you're not going to brake as effectively as you are in a straight line. So you may want to come off the brakes a little bit to go back on them to get your maximum braking potential. So again, I'm going to brake on the board, as I said, 100-meter board. I'm going to brake, and as we're going to start to turn in, be aware of those cones. Bit slower than I wanted to there, and there's the oversteer I was mentioned. Come down to second gear. Again, you can go to first gear here. Be aware of the cones on the inside, they will disqualify you there. That's quite a common one to hit. And be careful on the exit as well. If you go too far over the right hand side, again, it will disqualify you. This lap is all about not getting disqualified and being consistent. So again, I've lost another 10th to Wolf there, but that's not too bad. Now as we come up to Arnage, this corner is, but at first you're looking for brake markers and you have no idea where there is one there, but there is one luckily. So on the left hand side we have a sand pit, and I brake about 5 meters, 10 meters before it. It's quite a decent judgment basically for braking. I use it every single time, and again, you're going to brake to first gear. This is the slowest corner on the track, I reckon. Yeah, it probably is. And you just want an easy way through this corner. You don't want to be doing anything. You just want to get round, and you're going to jump straight. You're going to start accelerating in first gear, jump to second gear, and then I'll explain the exit a bit further. So again, I noticed there I brake just before it, drop to first gear, and I'm just going to do an easy turn in here. Notice I'm not doing anything. I'm just letting the car roll, trying to get round. I know I can get 100% turning. Now I'll start the throttle. Notice I'm not changed yet. Second gear, I'm now in full throttle. I'm going to get a lot of wheel spin here. You can see that on the left hand side. And I'm going to change really early to third here, because there's a bump in the road just after this Porsche sign, which you should be able to see there. That will hit your limiter and effectively ruin your energy recovery system a little bit. That's actually deploying. And we're going to now accelerate to Porsche Curves. Now this is where this lap isn't so good. So as you know, I'm only 6 tenths behind here. So at the moment I'm on for a 25, which is my target for this round. But I mess up Porsche Curves here. So I will just explain the proper way, but you're not going to see the proper way to the full extent. So you'll see the line, but you won't see it properly. So as we come in, I brake a bit too early here. You want to brake just before the 100-meter boards and get a good turn in. And you, again, as we've done on all the other corners, you just want to basically not be doing anything and just let the turn happen. When you're happy with your apex speed and that you know you're going to make it, you can then start accelerating. Now I stay in 4th gear for this first section and for the next couple of corners, and then I'll drop to 3rd gear for the long right hander afterwards. So let's watch that happening. It's easier to show and explain. So notice I brake a bit too early there. I should have broken just before the 100-meter board. Notice I'm not doing anything here, but I'm not really turning either. So that's the potential I've lost. 145, I like to start accelerating. And this is the point where you want to not go more than where I am on the track. You want to stay, that's your limit basically. As you come around this left-hander, you can just come off the throttle a little bit if you're finding that you're going to run wide. Don't worry about it too much. Notice I've lost a lot of time here. Again, as you start to turn into the second part, you can come off the throttle as I've done there, just to make sure I get round the corner. And then as I come into this, I like to brake a little bit and drop to 3rd gear. I find it more consistent. Wolf just goes in here full blast. But as you can see there, I've maintained a good speed. I'm really tight to the corner. Be careful you're not too tight, because as this, obviously as the angle of the corner starts to diminish, if you're still turning, you're going to hit the grass and you're going to ruin your lap. So as you see here, I've edged out wider a little bit because I've released steering a bit more, just to make sure I don't hit the grass, because I kept doing that and it was really annoying as a habit. So try not to do that on your lap. Try and just edge out a little bit more. It doesn't matter that you're losing a bit of the angle of the corner here, because you're just trying to maintain your lap. You're just trying to finish it now at this point. So as we come into here, I stay in third gear. Again, come off the throttle, make sure I get the turn in, and then start to accelerate out. If you're going to run wide, again, come off the throttle. But if you're not, as you can see here, I've not used all the track. You can just carry on full throttle and hit fourth gear. So try and avoid these cones. Quite common to hit those. Also these ones even more so, because you're now getting sort of nervous about the 4 chicanes that's coming up. Now these chicanes are the make or break of the lap. They really, really are. I still don't do them 100% right, but this is the best I've done them so far. So I'll just explain it a little bit. I brake just before the line of cones. I found if I brake any earlier, I'll lose so much time. I found if I brake later, which you can do, Wolf brakes a little bit later, and he goes full in, full risk, but he's going for rank 1 in the world, so you know, it's expected. If you brake any later, you're putting more risk in the lap, and at this point, however 1 point whatever seconds behind Wolf, I'm just trying to finish the lap at this point. I just want to finish the lap. I know it's still on for a good lap. In my perspective, let's finish it. So I'm just going to brake just before the cones, and I'm going to stay in second gear. Again, you can go to first, but I find second easier to handle here. I find it's got a little bit of turning, which is quite nice. I find first gear generates a little bit of understeer and a little bit of wheel spin, but I stay in second gear. But I'm going to still be slightly aggressive. So as I said, just before the cones, third gear, second gear. One thing to note as well, notice how I'm not to the right. That's because if I'm to the right, I'll not those cones. So I'll stay in second gear, and I'm going to be really aggressive now. Notice I've just let off 100 miles an hour there. That is your first apex speed. Stay above 90 here. Now start to accelerate as you come to the last one. Only a little bit, but you're going to brake again straight away and come into the left. These cones, you can actually be quite aggressive on that first one to get a good angle for the second one. I'm not as aggressive because I'm just trying to finish it. You'll always hit those cones a lot of the time. And as you notice there, half throttle, 3/4 throttle. And I get out the corner and I'm just going to accelerate to the line. And that's a lap of a 3:26.4, which at the time is 4th in the UK. I've not done a lot of laps at the moment in GT Academy, and that's my guide to the corners. So just before we start the quick lap, a few things to mention there. Just make sure you're consistent with your brake markers, because then you can build a consistent lap. Because obviously the times are so different. So this lap is 4th in the UK, which is a qualification place, but it's still nearly 2 seconds off Wolf's time. So it's not about risk, it's about consistency. It's all about consistency. So if you could build your brake markers up and be consistent every single time, be that 10th that I mentioned, my 10th rule, be a 10th down on each sector, you're going to get a good lap. And if you are only a second behind Wolf, there's your lap, there's you off to Abu Dhabi, etc. Don't trail brake too much. You'll notice in some of that, I was braking as I started to turn, and I was understeering a bit more. Notice when I came off the brakes, I could turn fully. It meant I could get a better lap. Half throttle to 3/4 throttle was very key there. I was managing to get a bit more speed out of the car without getting understeered by being 100% throttle. And make sure you don't hit the cones. That's a big one. I know it sounds stupid to say, but aim to the left of the cones. You may miss out on a super quick lap, but you're not after a super quick lap. You're after a consistent good lap, not the super risky fastest lap in the world lap. Unless you're Wolf, obviously, then you are going for that. So let's go into the really quick lap now. Basically, I'll try and do this as well as I can in the Martin Brundle style. So as we head up to Dunlop Curve, we're going to go to the right hand side of the track. We're going to come off the throttle a little bit, so we're to the right hand side, and we're going to come down to first gear. We're going to stay tight to the left hand side so we get a good angle for the right hand corner. We're going to go to second early there just to make sure we don't run wide. We're going to accelerate through. As we come up to the Esses, we're going to stay to the right side, avoid hitting anything. Judgment corner, come down to second gear initially, start to accelerate in third, don't drop below 100 miles an hour. Turn to the right, avoid anything there, don't want to hit those. Tertre Rouge, using the time marks on the right side, brake at the end of those, turn in. I stay in third gear, you can use fourth gear. You can drop to second gear as well, but you'll lose a lot more time. Depends on what you're aiming for lap time wise. It's up to you. As we head down the Mulsanne straight to PlayStation Chicane, remember, we've got the 200 meter board, the sort of blue people, and then the 100 meter board. We're going to brake just before the blue people for a consistent brake marker. So as we could approach that now, 200 meter board, brake, come down to second gear, turn in. brake again just during that corner, get a good turn in there, maintain half throttle just to keep the momentum going through the corner, accelerate to the Michelin Chicane. You have a sector time there, so you generally know how well you've done that entire section. That is one where you will lose quite a lot of time because Wolf nails Tertre Rouge. So as we come up to the Michelin Chicane, it's a 100-metre board. Just before that, brake again, second gear, watch out for the bump on the left hand side as we turn into the right. Again, try and maintain speed with 3/4 throttle if you can, accelerate out, and again you'll be able to see your sector time for that bit. That's a really good one to practice because it's only one corner and the straight, so you can understand how the car accelerates, brakes and turns in. So as we come to the end of the Mulsanne straight, as we come to the Mulsanne corner, it's a tree on the right hand side, the dark one. We're going to brake at that, going to drop to first gear. It's a very slow corner, just turn in, don't do anything, accelerate out really quickly, short shift to second gear, make sure you don't get too much wheel spin, accelerate out, try and short shift to third a little bit as well because of the energy recovery system being deployed at that point. So it's around 110, 120 miles an hour. Just have a little play with that. It is helpful and it will gain you a little bit of time. So we're going to approach the Indianapolis section. Again, it's a 100-metre board. I tend to brake. I don't really want to drop below 185. I do there. I'm going to brake straight here. I stay in second gear. Again, you can go to first. Be careful on the exit on the right side. Let's come to Arnage. It's the sandpit. Just before the sandpit, we're going to brake first gear. Be very slow around here. Don't do anything. Make sure you get the turn and then accelerate out. Again, it's 3/4 throttle in first, straight to second, 100%. Really short shift here because there's a bump there which will hit the limiter as the ERS system's deployed, and then straight to fourth. So as we come to the Porsche Curves, this one's done slightly wrong. I brake slightly too early here. You want to brake much later than that, after the arrow, just before the 100-metre board. Turn in around 145 miles an hour. You can start to accelerate. Come off the throttle a little bit if you need to. Stay wide, come in, again, come off the throttle. I brake here, drop to third. Try and maintain a decent line round. Don't stay too tight because otherwise I might hit the grass. Again, come off and accelerate on again if you're not going to run wide there. So, Ford Chicane, this is the last part. We're going to brake just before the cones. I'm going to stay in second gear. I'm dropping to second gear and I'm going to try and be aggressive. 100 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour there. Try and accelerate a little bit, brake, get good turn in here. Good turn in there. I want an early acceleration period. And that's a lap of Lasarf in the Nissan GTR LMP1. In the LM Nismo and the LMP1 car. Whew, breathe. Any questions? Do fire them out in the comments. I'm only playing till Wednesday because I'm actually going to Le Mans. That's when my trip begins, so I can only answer them to Wednesday. I'm not going to have internet out there. As I said before, you know, it's all about brake markers being a consistent lap rather than a super quick lap. But that's GT Academy round 4. So I hope you enjoyed the guide. Timestamps will be in the video description. And again, any questions, fire them away in the comments. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.